Genesis 14, 1 through 12, the campaign of the four kings. In the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedor Laomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goiim, these kings made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemamber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. And all these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is, the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Kedar-laomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year Kedar-laomer and the kings who were with him came and subdued the Rephaim in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shaveh, Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir as far as El Paran on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is, Kadesh, and subdued all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out, and they joined battle in the valley of Siddim with Kedar-laomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goiim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, and the rest fled to the mountain. So the enemy took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions, and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Overview. The account is not without value, but gives an example of valor and prepares the way for the account that follows, showing God's power and the patriarch's virtue, Christostom. On the allegorical level, the 5 kings represent our 5 bodily senses, and the 4 kings are the seductions of the body and of the world, Ambrose. Lot learns from his capture not to set his heart on the better material things, and what a great good is harmony, Chrysostom. 14:8, the battle in the valley of Siddim, an example of valor, Chrysostom. Let us not idly pass these words by, dearly beloved, or consider the account to be of no value. It was of set purpose that sacred scripture recounted everything to us with precision, so that we should learn the might of these barbarians and the degree of valor they displayed and with how much ferocity they involved themselves in war, so as to clash even with the giants, that is, men powerful in bodily stature, and put to flight all the peoples dwelling there. You see, just as a swollen torrent sweeps away everything in its path and destroys it, in the same way the barbarians fell on these peoples and destroyed them completely, with the result that they put to flight the rulers of the Amalekites and all the others. But perhaps someone may say, what good is it for me to know about the might of the barbarians? It was not idly or to no purpose that Scripture mixed these matters in with its account. Nor is it without point that we are now bringing it to your attention and directing you in turn to recall their valor. Rather, our purpose is that from the ensuing instruction you may learn the extraordinary degree of God's power and also the patriarch's virtue. The 5 kings are our 5 bodily senses. Ambrose. We have seen now the progress of the noble mind, which, finding itself in perilous deviation from the path of virtue, immediately arose to search for the reward of wisdom, the inheritance of justice. The readings that follow will show how harmful are the vices connected with frivolity. For those 4 kings who defeated the 5 kings and took captive the whole cavalry of the Sodomites captured Lot, the son of Abraham's brother, as well, and went on their way. The 5 kings are our 5 bodily senses: sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. The 4 kings are the seductions of the body and of the world, because human flesh and the world are composed of 4 elements. Rightly are they called kings, because sin has a sovereignty of its own, has its own great kingdom. For this reason, the Apostle says, "Let not sin reign in your mortal body." Our senses then easily yield to the pleasures of the body and of the world, and become as it were subject to their dominion. Indeed, the pleasures of the body and the seductions of the world are conquered only by a mind that is spiritual, that clings to God and separates itself totally from earthly things. For every perversion is subjection to these allurements. Hence John says, "Woe to the inhabitants of the world." He was certainly not referring to every human being living on earth at that time, for there are those who live on earth but whose citizenship is in heaven, but rather to those who had been overcome by attachments to this earthly citizenship and the seduction of the world. We are not then inhabitants of this world, but pilgrims. Pilgrims live in hope of finding a temporary lodging, but inhabitants seem to place every hope and every use of their goods, whereby they believe they are living by rights. Thus, one who is a pilgrim on earth is an inhabitant of heaven, but the inhabitant of earth is an owner of death. 1412, Lot's capture. Division is a great evil. Chrysostom. Notice that what I said yesterday has come to be true, that Lot, far from being better off for his choice of the better parts, rather had learned from experience not to set his heart on the better parts. You see, not only did no benefit come to him from it, but indeed he was even led away into captivity. He learned the lesson through experience, that it was much better for him to enjoy the just man's company than to be parted from him and undergo these great trials, even if living independently. I mean, he parted from the patriarch and thought he enjoyed greater independence, had the good fortune to enjoy the better parts and experience great prosperity. And all of a sudden he becomes a captive, dispossessed, without hearth or home. The purpose was for you to learn what a great evil division is, and what a great good harmony is, and that we ought not hanker after pride of place, but love to take second place instead. Now they seized Lot and his accoutrements. The text says, remember, how much better was it to be in the company of the patriarch and accept everything for the sake of not sundering the mutual harmony that he separated, and while choosing the better parts, he be immediately beset with such awful perils and fall into the clutches of barbarians.